What's up, you beautiful people? This is Gary Horn, and this is the NWA. I was gonna wait a few more minutes, but I didn't want to miss that for the intro, for like the podcast listeners to be like, God, I gotta get there live because what the hell was I missing up until that point? Because it was real talk.
Seriously.
This is the podcast celebrating the past, present, future, history, legacy, and tradition of the greatest pro wrestling entity of all time, the National Wrestling Alliance. I am one of your hosts, Gary Horn, and I am here with the Doctor of Style, the Doctor of Thugonomics, the PhD of the D.
Detroit.
Dr. Rob Stinson's here.
I don't like that anymore. All right. Not McLovin, man. Hey, guys, thank you for joining us. We have missed you guys this week. We look forward to this every Sunday night. Thanks for joining in, man. Love you guys.
Man, I made myself cry. And then also, hey, it's Will.Daly's here. Hello, Will.
Hello.
Thank you to everybody who's here in the chat. As always, what we're going to do in the first little part of this, we're going to go over some wrestle news, and we're going to talk to you guys about that, and we'll save that for the podcast portion. And then afterwards, we'll cut off the podcast part and just hang with the chat. And honestly, this is going to be a light episode anyway, just like hanging out, shooting the breeze, so the chat will probably be more informed. If you'd like to be a part of the chat and you're listening to this later on your treadmill or in your sauna or wherever you're at, you can join us all the time. Well, not all the time. On Sundays and Tuesday nights, usually about 8. We were a little late today. That's on me. And that is at youtube.com/the NWA Pod. So you guys should come hang out with us, subscribe to that channel. And if you're in here right now and you haven't hit that like button, what are you even doing? Because we need those likes. It helps us get in front of more people. So anyway, before we get started, it's good to know that this podcast, support for the NWA, this is the NWA podcast, is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you with the best tools for your grooming experience. Will, you were telling us right before this that you had a funny Manscaped story.
Yeah, man. I was unpacking from the beach and my toiletry bag fell out onto the floor and just started vibrating. And that was the Lawnmower 3.0 making its presence known. The good news is it's very durable, so it didn't break. It survived a pretty large fall, but it was a funny moment. And I just wanted to tell that story to just remind everybody that these are durable pieces of machinery here. The Lawnmower 3.0 is a good product. So you should check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all know that the old trimmers we had, like any other electric razor, if you dropped it in your bag, it would just shatter on the ground. That'd be it.
I used to go through, one of those trimmers like every couple of 3 months. And that not with this one. It's durable. It holds up.
Yeah, that's why Manscaped redesigned the electric trimmer. The engineering team spent 18 months perfecting the greatest ball hammer. That is a whole different product. They haven't. That's keep that on the DL. That hasn't come out yet.
It's mansmash.com.
Okay. Anyway, they released the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0 that Will's talking about right there. It's a third generation trimmer, features a cutting edge ceramic blade to help reduce the grooming accidents that you're all familiar with. I'm sure you've cut yourself from time to time where you're trying to, and it's always weird because it just feels like every time I've ever had to trim down there, I always think that I'm going to end up having like a something about Mary moment or something, or I'm going to cut something and then the ambulance is going to get called and it's just going to be just dirty work. But anyway, not going to happen with Manscaped to the Lawnmower 3.0. When I tell you this thing is premium, I mean premium. The battery lasts up to 90 minutes. It's waterproof, has a cool LED light that just shines in the hard-to-see areas. And they've also upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with quiet stroke technology. So it's fast and quiet. That's what you need. Yeah. It's like a ninja. But
it's like, whoa,
don't take it from me. Don't take it from me or the PhD of the D. This thing is top notch, and it's got don't forget, a great charging stand that's USB powered. So if you're listening to me, why can't I talk today? If you're listening to me speak right now, go try this thing out for yourself. We want you to experience it. If you go to manscaped.com and use the code NWA Pod, you get 20% off and free shipping. At manscaped.com. Go do it. Trim that junk of yours. You don't want to be a woolly mammoth down there. You don't want your balls to look like Rob's head. Manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping. Use the code NWA Pod. Tell them we sent you. Thank you. All right. That was good.
What's wrong with my head, bro? First of all, let's get down to that. Let's say what you got to say.
I just meant wrinkly and weird. No. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, you got long hair, you got the beard, so it's just extra hairy. Like, it would work for me and Will, but like our hair is shorter than your hair. You're like growing the mane. So that's
a good thing, right?
I got nothing, man.
Nothing wrong with that, man. You're a lion. You're Leo. You represent. Will's bald as a baby's bottom over there.
Baby's bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So a lot of news, guys, we could talk about. I guess up at the top of the show, we'll just go ahead and say this. RIP to Kamala. Just saw that announced that Kamala had passed away. I know that Kamala had a lot of health issues. I was going to look for like any sort of let's see here. Is there an article that came out? I just saw it posted on the Twitter. But yeah, he apparently just passed away, according to reports. Yeah, WrestleZoll say Jerry the King Lawler shared some sad news on Sunday night when he revealed that Kamala had passed away. In a brief message, Lawler briefly stated that he had been informed of the news. During Kamala's legendary career, he feuded with Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, and The Undertaker. He wrestled all over the world, and he was inducted into the Texas Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2012. Kamala returned to WWE a few times throughout the years. He competed in the unforgettable Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania X7. He also had a brief run in WCW where he was a member of the Dungeon of Doom. Cauliflower Alley Club also tweeting out here, says the CAC family wishes to extend our sincerest condolences to the family, friends, and fans the world over upon the news that the legendary James Kamala Harris has passed away at the age of 70. Rest in peace, James. So, I'm sure some of you are familiar with Kamala. I have to say I only knew Kamala mostly from the WWF stuff, WWE or whatever. I remember he'd pin people on their stomach because he just didn't understand the concept. Not even sure if he's a gimmick that would get over right now. It seems a little bit touch and go on that, but he was around for a long time. I've heard Stone Cold Steve Austin talk about Kamala quite a bit. Just the promo packages that they would put together with like searching for him throughout the jungle and stuff that he like scared Steve Austin as a kid. But any thoughts, memories of Kamala?
Not a lot of memories, man. Just except for seeing him, after the fact. I wasn't really watching at the time when he was involved, but just historically, I mean, his gimmick, his character, he definitely made a name for himself and wrestled all over the world. And anytime somebody like that passes, it's just a sad day for the wrestling world. I know he had a lot of health complications, I think, due to diabetes and things like that, and had both legs amputated, I believe, in the past 10 years or so. And so a lot of health issues, and it's kind of one of those things where you hate it, but he was probably had a rough go at it the past few years, and so hoping he's in a better place right now and his family can have some peace through all that.
Man, the Ugandan Giant. I mean, this is one that growing up, he was somebody along with guys like Abdul the Butcher, Missing Link, / he's one of the ones that I was afraid of as a kid. Which means he did his job. I mean, he his character was larger than life, and this man, he'll be missed. I mean, he gave his life to the sport, and he's one of the legends. And just until Valhalla, Rest well, my champion.
Sorry, my mic's messing up here. Yeah, he definitely did. Will, you mentioned the amputation. He did have that in 2017. He dealt with some. He had to have emergency surgery to clear fluid from around his heart and lungs. So he's definitely been dealing with some health issues. Yeah, I mostly remember the WWF stuff. I remember him being afraid of the casket when he was feuding with the Undertaker, and there was that big thing. But he had his manager Kim Chi and Harvey Whippleman as his manager. But yeah, I remember he regularly like fought against like guys like Undertaker and Ultimate Warrior and Texas Tornado. He was in that time frame for me. But Brian Cervantes in the chat talking about watching him on Houston Wrestling, and I think that's where a lot of people saw him for the first time. Was in that
my favorite match of his, and I could be wrong here, but I think it was the Parade of Champions. This is the night that Flair beat Kerry for the belt, Kerry beat Flair for the belt, and he wrestled the Kabuki, the Great Kabuki, on that show. And just that card, the Parade of Champions, that's just an epic card anyway. But that's what I always remembered him, because down here, we didn't get a lot of WWF. We did get a lot of world class stuff, and I remember he having that little feud with Kabuki for a while.
It's a good memory, Rob. Guys, throw your memories of Kamala in the chat if you have any other stuff in there. Shout out to Mike C, who just purchased his hashtag NWA fam shirt. Thank you, Mike, for doing that. Those are for the community. We appreciate you teaming up with us. And Harvey Whippleman was his manager, and I see that dropped in the chat there. I mentioned that briefly, but he was also a manager of a guy we've been talking about a good bit lately, just on some of the reviews we've done with, like, didn't he end up managing Giant Gonzalez, who was Elegante for a long time? And I remember hearing like Elegante didn't manage his money that well, and he was basically had to go back to his home country and was kind of down in the dumps there. And Harvey Whippleman would send him money regularly, like a cut of his paycheck or something, to keep him going. Anyway, it seems like a good guy, that Harvey Whippleman. Anyway, what's next on the agenda? No, Brian Cervantes, you have not missed any NWA news. We're just getting to just news in general, but the Kamala thing just hit, so we decided to touch on that first. That was the first thing we're cutting in on. Let's see. Will actually made us another list here of some news we could talk about. I want to get to this Seth Rollins thing in a minute, because I feel like that could open up a good story. But how about, I guess, as we're talking about it, we've been talking about Mission Pro Wrestling, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a bit. But what about the news? I don't think we've had a chance to meet up and talk since the news got released. Courtesy of the Alliance blog, it's the first place I saw it. So if you guys don't follow them, you need to check them out. But Texas, Texas Independent Wrestling Expo is going on August 28th and 29th of this year. And it was almost too cool to believe, but it's a 2-night event, and it's Fighting Words Presentations presents the Independent Wrestling Expo at the NY Tech Sports Center. But we're not only is Thunder Rosa going to be defending it at Mission Pro on her world title defense, but now we're seeing that she's going to be competing at this event, and Nick Aldis is defending the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. And so if you were waiting for that title to come up for a defense, this thing is lit. Like this thing has Brian Cage is there, Nick Aldis, like I said, Alex Hammerstone, Jacob Fatu, Lance Archer, Matt Sydal, Brian Pillman Jr. Who else is on this thing? Obviously, Thunder Rosa, I mentioned Jordan Grace, Christy James, Stephen Bonner, EC3's there, Sean Spears. I mean, gosh, I could barely read it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read the small stuff here. But Nick Aldis's match is in a triple threat. We know one of his opponents is Jeff Cobb, of all people, which is a big deal. That's kind of cool. New Japan Pro Wrestling's Jeff Cobb. And the other opponent is going to be decided the first night in a battle royal. Whoever wins that battle royal is going to come over to night 2 and compete in the triple threat with Jeff Cobb and Nick Aldis for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. Jeff Cobb alone feels like a match they would have built to normally. And now here he is just out of nowhere. Nick Aldis is coming back after a hiatus here, and he's got to put that title on the line, and he's not taking it easy with that match. Is that not insane?
Yeah, listen, I think we talk about this a lot. I'm not a huge fan of triple threats, but at this point, I don't care what kind of match it is. We're getting Nick Aldis defending the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship in 2020, and I am amped for it. I love Jeff Cobb. If you've never watched his stuff, he's great. Just a powerful dude, one of these like powerhouse suplex, like you believe every move that he. I don't feel like the guys have to sell a lot because I feel like he is jacked. So that alone is great. I'm interested. Do we know who's in the battle royal leading up to that?
So there's a picture here, and if you guys can, here, I'll do this. I'll share my screen.
Ooh.
Yeah. Hey.
Fancy.
All right. So I've got a lot better internet connection now, so hopefully this is all working better. So here's the poster for this thing. Oh, I guess that's as close as I can get. So you see night 2 here is a triple threat main event. Winner of night 1 battle royal. I don't know if like all these people down at the bottom are in it, or there's a 4-man one night tournament here. I don't know if they're talking about that. I don't know who some of these people are. That looks like Chris Masters there with Jacob Fatu in the night 1 main event, and that's definitely Lance Archer, and somebody can probably tell me who that other guy is. I apologize. I don't know. Sam Adonis, I see, says Ringside Rant. I apologize. I'm not up on my independent wrestling as I should. Who is Thunder Rosa up against here? I see some names, but like who is this nice lady that Thunder Rosa is going to be competing against? And perhaps Bryce Cervantes, who's in the chat, can tell us maybe is that an NWA Women's Championship match? Is this a title match, or is this just an exhibition? Interested to know on that one. I'm not gonna lie, I was thrown off by this. This came out of nowhere, and it feels like with, nothing off these guys, but little fanfare. Like it just seemed like it was just out of nowhere, and you're having like a 2-night wrestling expo, and it's like autographs, signings, wrestling art, merchandise sales, live podcast recordings, wrestling move demonstrations, wrestling quiz tournament, best wrestling body contest, strongest wrestler contest, wrestling seminar with Matt Seidel, Q&As with top stars like Jake the Snake Roberts, Jazz, and Gangrel. So look, even Jazz is going to be there. Like, what is going on here?
Over there to the left, the lower left-hand corner of the poster, you see the blonde-head lady. That is Terry Gordy's daughter. I think her name's Miranda Gordy. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, just insane. Like it feels like an independent WrestleMania almost. I was like, what is this? And happy to see 2 of our big stars from the NWA, 2 arguably the biggest stars from the NWA, are going to be at this event. And some other wrestlers I'm a really big fan of. Alex Garcia, Brian Cervantes says, is the opponent for Thunder Rosa there. That's going to be interesting. But anyway, Rob, if you feel like going to Texas a month early,
man, I'm looking at it right now, man. I really was. I'm like, oh gosh, man.
I'm just saying, should we all just move to Texas? What's going on?
It really feels like it.
Kids don't need that college fund. I can take a little bit from it.
Is this?
I got another question. You said live podcast recordings. We haven't gotten a call about that.
Yeah, what's up with that? I don't get that.
I mean, I hadn't gotten my comp tickets yet.
Makes no sense. We should be there. And yeah, it's kind of crazy that that's going on, and I don't see any sort of notification about it being streamed or anything like that. But man, it should be, because I bet you could kill it right now with an event like that. But anyway, I'm excited. I'm excited to see Thunder Rosa compete again. I'm excited to see Nick Aldis defend that title, and especially in a match with Jeff Cobb. That sounds awesome. It's going to be exciting.
That will come on day 679 of the reign. August the 29th will be day 679. So,
yeah, and that's a main event anywhere, man. That's good. That's good stuff. But speaking of seeing Thunder Rosa compete again, we would be remiss if we did not bring up the fact that Hell Hath No Fury, Mission Pro Wrestling's first ever event, is taking place on Friday, September 18th, 2020. Our very own Dr. Rob Stinson will be in attendance at this event, VIP. He is excited. We're excited for him to be there. And you can bet we're going to be covering this thing. We've mentioned it every show, and we will continue to do so because I have not been this excited about an event in a long time. God help me if I've been this excited about a wrestling thing in 2020 because it's all been rough. And so I'm excited for this one. This one's going to be a lot of fun. Completely women run. I guess that's the way to say that. Just top to bottom, all women, taking care of business, making wrestling happen for the people. And it's going to be amazing. You guys have to check this out. Friday, September 18th, 2020, you've got Elena Black versus Rachel Rose. You've got, that might be Rachel Rose, and I apologize if I'm messing that up. There's Alex Garcia. I see her. She's on the card here. Alex Garcia versus Avery Taylor. So she'll be at that event. Roxy versus Jenna Van Muscles. That is a very clever name. And you've got Maddie Rinkowski versus Baby D. And Bert Vixen and Jenna Lynn versus Promise Braxton and Killa Kate. And then some big money going to be put on the line here when La Rosa Negra has to go up against All Elite Wrestling's Big Swole. What a get for Mission Pro. That one's going to be awesome. And, of course, the main event, the match that everybody wants to see, the dream match that we'd have booked ourselves if these ladies hadn't already done it for us. And that's going to be Thunder Rosa defending the NWA Women's Championship against the American Kaiju, Lindsay Snow. That match is going to be off the hook. This is all
our very own Dr. Rob is going to be there live. We'll work something up. We'll probably do some live pre-post show stuff and make sure you get it on that Title Match Network. But I'm just not sure after that match if Rob's going to make it back alive. I feel like he might just, because he's been talking about that as a dream match since before Mission Pro was being talked about on this show. And now it's happening. And I feel like when the final bell rings, that he just might just leave his body, and that might be it. So we're hoping Rob makes it through, but we'll be covering it for sure. So stick around to this channel. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm with you, Gary. I can't wait. It's been months and months and months since I've been like amped about watching a wrestling event. And so thank you to Thunder Rosa and that whole crew for putting this on. It could not come at a better time for all of us like wrestling hungry NWA fans. So thank you for that.
Right. Since March the 13th or so, about the time that, and I just base that date because that's when my school shut down here. The one constant in the NWA has been Thunder Rosa and Brian Rosa. They've constantly put out content. They're keeping the brand alive on their social media platforms. They've been talking to us about Mission Pro coming, and then they gave us this blockbuster, the American Kaiju and Thunder Rosa for the belt. So we've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks that if the belt was on the line, we would be there, and we're going to be there. And in fact, I know Brian Rosa is looking for ring crew people. We're going to get into town probably 11 or 12 that day. We've got a connection, so time may. But if I'm there in time, of course, I'm willing to help Mr. Rosa. Pamela Fisher, Polka Dot Pam, is going to be there. She's coming all the way from New Orleans, and we're going to have a meet and drink. We got to get Heather Hunley, her girl, there. We got to reach out to Italy and see if Lobby can't make it. Man, we got to make this like an old school NWA Power meet and greet. But this is going to be great. It feels like life again, and I'm so excited just to hang out with Pam Fisher and get a drink, man, and hang out with my boy Brian Rosa and watch my champion, La Mera, defend that belt and walk out with the title, with the Burke.
You guys are here to make me jealous, and I am so disappointed that I'm not going to be there as of right now. Although Rob has actively pursued my wife to make her let it happen. But that aside, it's going to be an exciting event, and it is, if you can't be there, streaming on the Title Match Network. So you can watch it. Unlike that Wrestling Expo, you can catch this event live on – sorry, I just dropped the date again for some reason. I'm terrible at this job. My computer just crapped out on me.
You talking about the Mission Pro?
Yeah,
event?
I was going to say, you're going to be there, bro. You can jump in at any time.
No, it's Friday, September the 19th, I believe it is.
18th, Friday, September the 18th, 2020. Yeah. Doors are at 7, unless you're VIP. Doors are at 6:30. Get in early and get your front row seats. You got to try to go if you can. Make sure you're there. Buda, Texas. Never been there. Sounds nice. I've never been to Texas, period. But Brian Cervantes says it's the place to be. Speaking of awesome things, by the way, you were talking about putting out content about Thunder Rosa. And I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if you had to put together a list of, like, MVPs from the NWA, like, people that are, like, must-haves, like, MVPs, can't miss, can't lose them, got to keep them. Obviously, you got your champ, Nick Aldis, and your other champ, Thunder Rosa. Those two, like, carry this company on their backs right now. Like, they are, and Thunder Rosa is just murdering the game. Like, she is just unstoppable with as far as producing content and keeping her name out there. And that's what this should be about, like, self-promotion. She don't need a company behind her. And so any company should feel lucky to have her on the roster, because nobody is doing it like she's doing it right now. And if you guys aren't members of our Discord, you should be, because she even jumps in there from time to time. She jumped in there, like, literally, yesterday? Was it yesterday, to let us know to send our love and prayers out to Brian Cervantes because he got burned up. It was just too bad. And so we wish you well. Best wishes to Brian Rosa out there in Sunbird Land. Brian Rosa's also been dropping, by the way, if you guys have been sleeping on this in the chat room, Brian Rosa's dropping some breadcrumbs, and I think we're going to hit on that a little bit, but he says we're going to have to go live again on Tuesday. Well, we're live now, and we'll be live on Tuesday as well, so we plan on being there live.
Yeah, we're going to have to go live after Tuesday. So
Wednesday?
He said Tuesday, didn't he?
He said after
Tuesday. You guys are going to have to go live again after Tuesday.
Oh, well, then we'll have to plan on it.
Evidently, something's about to go down, man. Something's fixing to go down.
Can I talk about a news item that wasn't on our list that we should talk about?
No.
Is it on the agenda?
If it's not on the list, Gary, you can't. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Well, then, what do you guys want to talk about next?
Just kidding.
Friday the 18th shirt you're wearing. That's dope, man.
I was going to read you the article, but it's a little too long. But the new Wrestling Observer came out. It's technically the August the 10th edition, but it is out right now. You guys can go there and check that out. But in it, Dave Meltzer has done some fantastic research. Said stuff he's been I first heard about it on this podcast from today, but stuff he's been wanting to do for a little while, and but just hadn't had time, and he finally got around to it for this week's Observer. And it basically boils down to this in simplest terms. He was talking about how he had a prediction that in 2022, at some point, there would be picture, you know how graphs work. There's the line for AEW viewership, and there's the line for WWE and like the different WWE companies like Raw, SmackDown, NXT. And he figured like AEW and NXT would be like neck and neck most of the time, and they have been. Somewhere around 2022, he thought in some bracket, you would start to see some lines intersect. between AEW and SmackDown and Raw, possibly. Well, he's writing today to say that he was incorrect. It's already happened. 18 to 34 viewership by AEW is dominating SmackDown and Raw now. So AEW has surpassed the WWE every program overall in the ratings for the key demo of wrestling. And that's just a big news moment. Now, I don't know how big that's going to blow up for anybody, but I think it should, because it's that's a key demo for a reason. Like, that's exactly the demo they want, because that's the people that buy things. That's the people that, consume the content the most. WWE's got the best overall viewership on SmackDown and Raw because of the older viewers, just so many. And so he mentions in the article too that women viewers have also fluctuated. So they've been a little weird about it, but a lot of times he thinks like maybe they're just, they're just stuck on whatever's on, or whatever they're used to seeing, or whatever the people they're with happen to be watching, or whatever. But it's a very strong sign that that AEW is in the hunt right now, and it's coming faster. Everybody's on the same playing field. Nobody's got a crowd. Used to, that was the biggest criticism for AEW, is they just had a rabid fan base that just cheered anything. That's not the case anymore. They don't have a live crowd. They're on the same level playing field, and AEW is moving quickly against WWE. And so it's just kind of interesting to see that play out.
Yeah. And let me add this in too, from a marketing standpoint, because, a lot of people, if you don't work in marketing like I do, you don't realize this, but networks and advertisers do not look at the cumulative ratings. They don't look at the overall viewership. They look at that demo, because everything in marketing, everything in business is driven by user intent, and it's driven by the user trends. And so that 18 to 34 demographic is hugely important, because exactly what you said, Gary, those are the people spending money. That's the age group that'll buy a pay-per-view, that'll subscribe to a network, that'll, go buy the merch and things like that. And so, the overall viewership, honestly, is not that important when it comes to the business side of things. And so you can tout that all you want, but that key demographic is what networks and big companies and things like that are looking at. So that's a big deal that AEW has reached that point and is competitive in that specific demographic. And I know, Chris Jericho's got his demo god thing going on, and it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but that's a very real thing in marketing and in business. And that demographic is hugely important, especially in wrestling, when you're talking about TV deals and things like that, advertising money, and that kind of stuff. So that's great for AEW.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly the point he's getting at. And then just also pointing out that, like, don't forget that the only reason AEW is not doing better in overall viewership as well is because they have active competition on Wednesday nights that WWE is putting in there, probably to create exactly this kind of situation where those numbers can't get up any higher. That there's something pulling viewership away from them. But it sounds like to me that with any luck, or I don't know if I should say it that way. I just don't care about SmackDown and Raw anyway. So, but the wrestling night could move to Wednesdays. Like it could really become the Wednesday Night War. But AEW topped 1 million viewers this past week. So they I think like one or two segments got over 1 million at a certain point. So pretty impressive. I mean, their average viewership was lower than that, but anyway, just thought that was interesting news. And I guess the reason I'm bringing it up so that we don't put Rob completely to sleep here.
I'm in this, man. I'm interested.
Okay. Well, not here to tout Dave Meltzer as perfect anything. I see some conversation already happening in the chat about him and that sort of thing, but the man does do the numbers, and that was kind of where I was going with this. And it comes on the cusp of I'm just teasing this. I don't know anything, but my thing is if you look out on this past week or so, we've seen, I mean, I guess over the past month, Thunder Rosa like put out a tweet to Hikaru Shida, and Nick Aldis has gone back and forth with some people. Well, we saw Eddie Kingston go back and forth with Cody Rhodes, and obviously that turned into something. And then Nick Aldis going back and forth with Bruce Pritchard. I was like, what other way to get back at Bruce Pritchard than if like Nick Aldis could do something? NWA is the perfect outside fringe group that could make a difference. And if Tony Khan wanted to strike while the iron is hot right now, like while they're competing, like you wanted to just take the kill shot, opening himself up to some partnerships would be ideal right now. We've talked about this a number of times, just like the possibilities of this happening, but it feels like that could just end it right there. Like that could put them right in the mix immediately. What do you guys think about that?
I have argued for forever, even before my time on the show, that the NWA is a meta promotion, and that it's appropriate for any cooperation with any territory, promotion, entity, what have you. That is what should happen, because the NWA title, whether it be the birth or the 10 pounds of gold, is the one ring to rule them all.
That's the tough one. That's the tough one. That's going to be the one that's hard to, I think, have every company get on board of, is that the NWA title is the one title. That's like, I can see that the company's starting to work together, but it seems hard to believe they're going to go for like one world's championship.
No, I think that, I'm not saying that the other territories or entities or promotions don't have legitimate world championship status any more than the WWF doesn't have 4 or 5 different world titles that they recognize. They all have a legitimate claim. What I'm saying is that there is a veneration and a position that the NWA holds that everybody universally respects. And I think most people could get behind saying, hey, you know, so we were talking the other day, I can't remember if it was on social media or what, about would Cody versus Nick Aldis, like, would that demean the 10 pounds of gold because it'd be that versus the TNT title? I'm like, not at all, man. I mean, anybody who holds a title in any promotion can contend for the world belt, you know. And it just so happens that the 10 pounds of gold is the most prestigious. It is the lineal title. It's the one ring. It's the one belt that everybody who ever stepped in a ring covets the most. That's no shade on any other title. But I really think that a lot of people would surprisingly get behind that idea that we're going to have the NWA belt defended on our show in this promotion, in this environment. And maybe the belt changes hands, maybe it doesn't. But I think people would still respect it.
Will, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I mean, it would just be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, talking about, you know, utilizing some of that NWA talent. I think the key thing for me would be to identify them as NWA talent. I mean, we've seen in the past several months, Ricky Starks come over and sign a deal, and now Eddie Kingston come over and sign a deal with AEW. So I wouldn't want it to be like a poaching type scenario. And it wouldn't really be poaching because these guys are not under contract. Nick Aldis is under contract. But, you know, if we're talking about the greater NWA roster, like I think it would be great from the angle of, hey, this is an NWA star. They're on hiatus. He's coming. He or she is coming to appear here in AEW. I wouldn't want it to be one of those things where they just ignore the history of that person and they treat them like they're like a rookie in AEW. You know, I would want it to be a true collaboration of AEW and NWA, if that makes sense.
Yeah. One other thing I want to add, I understand that we've talked a lot about the NWA being on hiatus. I want to get past saying that, because I don't think the NWA is on hiatus. I think Power's on a hiatus. But obviously, if the belts are being defended, then the NWA is not on hiatus. I mean, it's not been on hiatus since the day that Thunder Rosa announced that she was defending the belt at Mission Pro. So, you know, the Power's on hiatus because that is a certain production. But I want to get past that, and I'm with you, Will. We don't want someone coming in like there's just some rookie that came in and now they're here we are, this new. Since we've got an NWA talent being represented on our show. And I think that only If it were me, and I'm not a businessman, I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. I don't have a business sense or whatever. But if I were the promoter or owner of any of those, I would love to see some title versus title stuff happen with the NWA being in the mix of it, regardless of what the outcome was. I mean, I think if Nick Aldis went into AEW and defended his belt against the TNT title, and just by happenstance he should lose, I don't think that discredits the NWA belt at all. And same thing with Cody Rhodes. I mean, these are guys that have a pedigree. They're both world-class athletes. I think they only enhance the other person, or the other is you don't throw, it's not diminishing one, it's just enhancing the other. So, I don't know if that makes sense.
And I think you're right too with what you're saying about, I mean, definitely of the two big promotions, WWE and AEW. AEW would be the one that would hold the NWA in the highest regard, and they have respect for the historical aspect. I mean, they've got guys like Arn and Tully, in managerial positions on their roster. So I think they would be open to hopefully acknowledging the historical aspect of the NWA and utilizing that to connect with some, more purist traditional fans like us. I think that would be a smart move, but it really just, at the end of the day, it depends on where they want their business to go and what they want to do during this time. But if they wanted to go that direction, you're absolutely right. The opportunity is there, and strike while the iron's hot. I mean, there's a lot of NWA talent that would probably love to go over there and represent the National Wrestling Alliance on TNT. And it would definitely make for some interesting feuds and matches and things like that.
I think it's crazy not to do something like this right now. And I mean, obviously I'm not a businessman and I'll never be a billionaire, but I mean, there are things that definitely the NWA lends itself to being able to assist with. I mean, aside from like an awesome Aldis and Rhodes feud, which would benefit everyone. A lot of talk in the chat room right now that's going on in regards to the AEW women's roster. Apparently Dave Meltzer said some things about them this week. I did not hear this, so I apologize. I don't know exactly the details, but maybe that he insulted half the AEW women's roster or something. I will say this, and this is no knock on the women necessarily, but they've also had injuries and that sort of thing happen to them. They've got some people on the way, like that feel like they're building up. Sheeta is obviously one of them. I think she's exactly who should be the champion right now. I've seen people talk about Nyla Rose, but I think Nyla Rose has a lot of potential, but she I don't know. I felt like she didn't quite hold the women's championship like Hikaru Shida does. And then Chris Statlander is injured right now. I thought she was working her way in there. And Big Swole's making a name for herself. Britt Baker's obviously injured. So there are names now. I just named some right off the top of my head, which is something I couldn't do at first for the AEW women's roster. But I say all that to say that I think that one of the weaker parts of AEW right now, in my personal opinion, is their women's roster. And maybe I don't even mean their women's roster, but I mean whatever's been happening with their women. I don't feel like the storylines are as strong, and it's not presented as strongly as they've been presenting some of the male storylines, if that makes sense. And I think exactly what could be I think the NWA women's roster and their storylines and their product that they've been putting out is top notch. And it would be a hell of a shot in the arm for the AEW women's roster if you got an influx of talent from NWA, particularly if the NWA women's champion were to actually come in and go face to face with Hikaru Shida. Like that is top notch. That's what I would love to see out of it more than anything right now. Maybe even more than gosh, I know it's blasphemy, but
don't say it, bro. Don't say it. No, I'm with you, man. Gary, I think that, again, it's not a knock on, it's just the AEW women's roster is down right now with the injuries and stuff. You got some of the best. I've always liked Penelope Ford a lot. I mean, you got Bunny, who wrestles, I don't like her being eye candy. I think she's a force in the ring too, and is entertaining to watch. They've got great talent. There's a lot of injuries and stuff right now, but the NWA women's roster, yeah, it's very select. It's smaller, but every single woman in that roster is an Impact player. Every single one of them, from Thunder Rosa at the top all the way to Ashley Vox. I mean, every single one of them are Impact players. And you have let's just say an NWA invasion of AEW, if something like that were to happen. Oh my gosh, that's good for everybody. It's good for women's wrestling. It's good for professional wrestling. It's good for the AEW, and it's definitely good for the NWA. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think that it's just, I mean, you know, as we see with WWE, just having great talent doesn't make for a great program. It's got to be creatively smart. The storylines have to be there, and I think that's where AEW dropped the ball. Is they've had great talent, they've just never put together cohesive storylines and things that people could really sink their teeth into. And it felt like they kind of were going for this, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit with some comments that Seth Rollins made, but this just like quick payoff storylines, like not really building anything, nothing that had any longevity. And we don't see that necessarily in the men's division on AEW. So that's been one of the contrasts in the creative styles and the booking of both the divisions. And so I think if they can, you know, pull together some good long-term storytelling, some good feuds, have some more meaningful interactions with the talent, and really, you know, some believable stuff. I mean, Gary, you mentioned a lot of those women wrestlers that have gotten themselves over. I mean, Britt Baker is injured, but she's getting herself over injured as a heel in AEW. I mean, she's doing great, but I mean, there just hasn't been anything, like I said, to really sink your teeth into in the women's division. And I think they could definitely benefit from something like, you know, having some NWA people come in and like spice it up a little bit during this time, and kind of give some validity to everyone involved, to both the NWA and the AEW, by having kind of some, you know, just extra creative storytelling in there.
Yeah, I think that would be good to see. And again, like I said, this is all coming on top of the news we got here that AEW is creeping into the top demographic that wrestling companies want. Why wouldn't you utilize like some of these outside fringe groups that are probably full of people that are looking for a chance to prove themselves and to get back on TV, to get back out there and to do something? I'm glad to see Thunder Rosa and Nick Aldis popping up again, but it would be fun to see, honestly, to see them on that platform, to get that much exposure, because right now it can only benefit NWA to have that happen. All right. Well, Will, since you hit on it, we'll jump into it here. If we have to talk about WWE, I don't want to be a negative guy here, but it's just funny. Is it just me, or is every time you hear like some kind of story where somebody in WWE criticizes someone or something, it sounds like they have absolutely no clue, like they're not aware of the world around them or something? I don't know. It just feels that way. So Will showed me a story today, and this comes from Cultaholic. It goes like this: pro wrestling storytelling doesn't always have it easy, especially when trying to present a traditional story in the modern area where media is greatly evolved. But Seth Rollins appeared recently on the Gorilla Position podcast, where, among other topics, the Monday Night Messiah acknowledges the challenges faced by wrestling today, as week-to-week programming can be in a disadvantage when compared to other forums. And this is a quote from Seth. He says, "In the age of instant gratification, audiences don't have the patience for long-term storytelling. When you can binge watch your favorite series in 2 days as opposed to 2 months, it creates a different precedent for how we intake our entertainment. We are consuming our entertainment differently, and wrestling is not immune to this shift. We have to adapt as well to keep up with our audience. I'm in my 30s, so I grew up to the longer form of entertainment, but our younger audience isn't wired that way." So that I don't think he's right.
No, he's not right. This is so. Listen, I used to be a huge Seth Rollins fan. When I came back to wrestling in 2015. It was mainly because of Sting appearing at WrestleMania 31. But I became a huge, heel authority version of Seth Rollins fan because I thought he was great on the mic. He was entertaining to watch, and he was just a great, had a great gimmick going at that time. In the ring, he's always been incredible, steals the show a lot of times. But lately, the past couple of years or so, it seems like he really has become like a mouthpiece for Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard and these guys who we can all agree are uninformed about what we, the wrestling community, are looking for in wrestling programming. And this is just another example. I mean, it literally sounds like the cue cards were handed to him from Vince and Bruce saying, hey, make sure you tell them why we don't do long-term storytelling. But they're obviously not listening to us, and they're not listening to the larger, wrestling community that I look at on Twitter and talk to and communicate with, because we all love long form storytelling, and we're all very critical of the fact that WWE could really benefit from doing some long term storytelling, and we feel insulted at the fact that they would mock us in a sense by doing these like instant gratification. Oh, I suddenly hate you, and we're going to wrestle on Sunday night, and then it's going to be over. Or these guys have a feud and they don't even acknowledge their past feud that they had 2 years ago. Stuff like that, like ignoring history. It's ignoring common sense in storytelling doesn't benefit anybody, and especially the viewer. It's not entertaining. And I mean, imagine if you watch your favorite show and it just didn't make sense from week to week. Like 1 week something was happening, and then the next week it's just like it never happened. That's what watching WWE is like. And they can say all they want about instant gratification and, oh, people can binge watch shows. Yeah, I binge watched Ozark, but it all made sense. And there was a story told across 3 seasons that all interconnected and intertwined the storylines. That's non-existent on WWE. If you go binge watch WWE over the past year, it's not like that. You by the time you're at the end, your head is spinning because you're like, what just happened? Like, why is he mad at him? And where did this feud come from? And that kind of stuff. So I get the sentiment of what he's saying, but they're going about it all wrong. And he's defending something that he shouldn't be defending. And I would think personally that Seth Rollins is smarter than that. But apparently he's been heavily influenced, in my opinion, from the top down with that kind of mentality.
I mean, if you watch any of the stuff that we put out on from this show that we do on Sunday nights to Tuesday nights to Piper's Notes, I've always argued that wrestling is it is within the family of performance art. It is legitimate performance art, and essential to that is storytelling, long-term storytelling. It's not you don't cater to the shortest attention span. You don't do that. I mean, kids are going to get there because they like the colors, the lights, and the whistles, man. You want to keep us, the educated fans, you got to tell a story, and you got to keep us entranced for a long, long time. That's what the NWA does so well. AEW does it pretty good. Impact, Ring of Honor, New Japan, they do it. They do it. Why can't WWE get on board? They are veterans in this. They are statesmen in this. Why can't they get on board, Will?
I don't know. Gary, you can say your piece because I've already said mine.
Well, this is a conversation, man. I mean, I don't mind. The thing is, to me, is like I look at somebody like Seth right now, and I'm thinking, like, isn't your fiance a perfect example of exactly how it does work? Like the build to Becky Lynch, while not exactly planned, her growth within the company was a long time coming, and then there were pieces of it that they even fought against, but the rise of Becky Lynch is arguably being their top superstar in the last 10 years is that was a long process to get there. It was a casual build. The Daniel Bryan build, like the actual stars that they have, I feel like were long form stories. I don't get why he thinks that. And what does he think they're doing now? It would be my question. Does he think that they're not doing that now? And the reason they're not doing that is because people can't handle it, because I would say, and I don't even mean this in like a dickish way, but like if you're looking at the ratings, if you're looking at the audience involvement in your product, then that would clearly show you something about the philosophy is incorrect. So it's I don't know. I mean, I get it. I get binge watching stuff. Like I did this with, I've done this with a lot of shows, but I also think that it makes you not get as invested. And wrestling is different, man. Wrestling is, besides getting into the discussion of if binge watching works or not, wrestling is a,
it's performance sport.
Yeah,
it's a performance sport. It's supposed to be real. You know,
exactly.
It's supposed to make us think it's real, and if it doesn't, then it's not wrestling. It's something else. It's daytime drama or evening drama, but it's not wrestling. Like when I see Seth Rollins or I see The Fiend, it's cool, it's entertaining, but I don't feel them. When I see Nick Aldis or Thunder Rosa, I feel them. I believe them. You know what I mean? That's what it's supposed to be.
That's exactly right. That's what I was going to say, is like it's giving you the I was trying to find my wording there, but you're right. It is portraying an actual sports arena, like in a sports presentation on television. You don't binge sports. That's not the way that it's supposed to be. And it's the process. It's about the ups and the downs, the ebbs and flows of that person's season, let's say, or whatever. That's all part of the presentation. So you can't just binge that. I mean, what and to get invested in characters, it's really hard to do if you're like, I mean, I don't understand what the alternative really is that he's proposing necessarily. Like I'm with you, Will. Like I kind of get the sort of what he's trying to say. Sounds like he's like the attention spans are a little bit shorter, but that just says to me like you got to work a little bit harder to make people invest.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. You don't cater to the. I'm sorry, Will. You don't cater to the shortest attention span because they're coming anyway. They're not coming for the story. They're coming for the makeup, the pyro. They're coming for the presentation, the lights, bells, and whistles. It's the older fans that are coming for the story. The people that are going to sustain the company. Kids aren't buying shirts. Adults are buying shirts. You know what I mean? Adults are putting the money out for pay-per-views and WWE Network accounts, not kids. So yeah, they're going to be entertained anyway because that's the product. Kids love the NWA, but they're not. The NWA is not catering to Piper and Petra. They got it anyway. They liked it anyway. You know, you built a story for us. I'm sorry, Will.
No, I was just going to agree. I mean, the bells and whistles, that's for the instant gratification crowd. The instant gratification crowd is not concerned about storylines. I do not know anybody who thinks that the WWE is killing it with their short-term storylines. Like nobody's like, oh, I'm here for that. People are here for, as you said, the short attention span people. They're like, man, this production is through the roof. They got cool t-shirts. They have pretty colors and their characters are very vivid and wild. Nobody's sitting here saying, oh, I love the WWE because I can get Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio in 1 week and I can see the resolution of it and then I can move on. Nobody wants that. Like nobody wants to watch a TV show and see the ending in the second episode. You know, you want to go, you want to have more if you're talking about, even when you're talking about binging. So I get what he's saying. It's just misplaced. That shouldn't apply to storylines. That should apply to your production. You should say, okay, people want instant gratification. Well, we're going to have pyro and we're going to have flashing lights and we're going to have cool video vignettes that tell the story and we're going to do this and that. That would cater just fine to that crowd. You don't do it with storylines. You keep the storylines in place to keep the creative integrity of professional wrestling as a performance sport.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Will. It's crazy to me. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what the alternative really is. I mean, if wrestling's supposed to get you invested in a person and like their career trajectory and that sort of thing, I mean, you can't possibly do it short term. It's just not the same. I don't know. It just doesn't work that way. And the thing about, I mean, It would be one thing too if you guys if they were doing it and it wasn't working, but they're not. Like, I don't see anything top quality. And let's face it, I mean, the WWE writers aren't the same people that wrote Stranger Things or Ozark or you know, any of that stuff. They didn't write Game of Thrones or any of that stuff. So maybe, you know,
I'm gonna tell you, those guys definitely did not write Gang of Thorns, man. Definitely.
Yeah, you're right, Gary. Like, it's one thing if they're sitting here and their ratings are doing this, and then they can go, "Hey, it's because we have instant gratification storytelling." And then I rub my chin and go, "Oh, okay, maybe they're onto something because people are watching." But it's not. Their ratings are doing this, and
that's what I'm saying. Like it's like there's no basis for this. There's no metric at all. And if you were going to rely on any metric that's out there, it would indicate the opposite.
Well, let's take for instance, like something you can measure exactly that way, which is going to be controversial. And I'm sure some people in our chat are going to hate me, but I mean this honestly as a nice guy. But look at AEW. So for instance, and I'm not trying to make like a pro AEW podcast here necessarily. I'm trying to say this as unbiased as I can, but take a look at AEW, and for all the guys out there, like a Jim Cornette, who I very much like hearing his opinion on stuff. I think he's an interesting guy, but he will bash some damn Young Bucks all day long and a Kenny Olivier and all of that stuff. Like, he will do it till the cows come home, and he hates them, and he hates the business. Now, granted, I think part of Jim Cornette is also performative. I think that he has also got a show to get ratings on and get the listens to. But that aside, my point is like you can literally look at their stuff and you can see that this past week, that $1 million+ segment of AEW involved Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Yep. That's where it came in. Yep. And so the numbers, you would have to, I mean, I don't care who you are. I mean, it's there. The numbers are there that maybe when they say like the world's changing a little bit, we may not like the Young Bucks and everything they do or think that their style of wrestling is a little weird, but there's somebody out there who's liking that stuff and it's working at least a little. And so that's where you got to take the evidence and be like, okay, I don't like this, but you know, like even if I disagree, it's a thing. And whereas with WWE, that's the opposite of what they're doing.
Right. You don't have to say you're pro AEW. I think we are all pro good wrestling, whether it's in the WWE or AEW. They all got good stuff, man. I'm not anti WWE. I mean, they're the flagship. We know that. AEW's got some brilliant stuff going on, man. Like, and I know it wasn't wrestling, but that freaking debate that Orange Cassidy and Jericho had, I was cracking up, man. I was like, I was laughing the whole time. It was brilliant, you know. But that's because you got people there in the creative department, and Cody Rhodes is one of them, and he's old school. He understands what it takes to write a story and to move narration along. There are people there that get it, or at least seem to get it, and there are parts, and every now and then there's a glimmer of hope there in WWE, mostly in NXT. But most of the time I'm like, come on, guys, what are we missing out on here? Why are you not seeing what we, the regular marks, we're just marks. Why don't you listen to us? Because we're telling you what we want to see.
Part of it too, man, like that really hurts the WWE is this pay-per-view every month deal that they've got going on. They're feeling pressured not only to have the weekly programming for 3 shows that all total 3, 5, 7 hours of programming a week, that they also have a pay-per-view every month, and they have to like book these matches and build to it. And AEW doesn't do that. They do like 1 a quarter, you know? And so they have the luxury of creating these feuds and making them last. But you look at AEW, you look at, if you're talking about instant gratification, they would have just put the belt right on Kenny Omega from the get-go because he had the most buzz coming into the company. Yes, Jericho, because he's a legend, had buzz, and I agree with what they did putting the belt on him. But Kenny Omega, people thought he was going to come in and just have a rocket strapped to his back, but he's not. He's a tag champ. They're going to build to that. And eventually, when he does get that belt a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, it's going to be huge because we're going to have all this long-term storytelling and this equity built into his character. They've been teasing a split between Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page for months and months since pre-COVID. And, that still hasn't paid off. In my mind, because I've been programmed by WWE for so many years, I thought that was going to happen that very next pay-per-view. They were going to split. But no, they've kind of reconciled, but now there's still some and it's like a building storyline, and nobody is saying that because of instant gratification that they're not built in, and nobody's saying or bought in. Nobody's saying, well, I'm going to stop watching because I wanted to go ahead and see Kenny Omega and Hangman Page split up, and they're taking too long and dragging their feet on it. People are enjoying it because every week there's a new element to the story. There's still
that they went with the crowd reaction, not to cut you off, sorry, but
no, yeah.
but that they even like that it started out that it was like obviously like Hangman's kind of being a dick, but then like Hangman kind of straightened up, and it's like Kenny's kind of being a dick sort of now, and it's kind of back and forth. They're just it's like it's more developed and well-rounded than just a casual just breakup.
When you do instant gratification storylines, you have no depth. And when you have no depth, you don't have buy-in from your viewers. And that's what WWE is experiencing right now. There's no buy-in. There's nothing to sink your teeth into. And that's why their ratings are declining, among other things. But they've got the talent. I believe they've got the creativity. If they can just shift their mindset to what we're talking about, they could be on top and stay on top. And, I know they've got the most money and they're probably going to be on top. And we saw their, earnings over the past few months were astronomical, even though they had to let a bunch of people go, apparently. Like that kind of stuff just doesn't sit well with us as the wrestling community. And that really contributes to the decline in viewership. People aren't interested in watching something that they can't get invested in.
God, it's going to sound like I'm really just up their butt right now, but it is like such a stark thing from like the stuff I see coming out of, like, I'm not completely cut off from it anymore. I listen to the results on podcasts I listen to, and I read about what's going on. So I have an idea for stuff like this, what's happening in the shows, but like, look at like, I don't know, like look at the Apollo Crews stuff that's been going on. And just how it seemed like there was a storyline, and then they've just dropped it with the U.S. title. It was just kind of over. Like Apollo came back and he got his title back. It seemed, I don't even know what happened there. It was just like for no reason this stuff was built up. But then you take somebody like a Cody Rhodes, who like they built up to go for the World's Heavyweight Championship, and did so in a story where if he lost, he would lose a shot at that forever. And then he did because of MJF. And he and MJF have had a feud, and MJF got the better of him in that. But have they wrapped that? They haven't even wrapped that yet. Like it just, both guys got sidetracked in other stuff. And Cody is still, like he's got the TNT title now. And I even saw he drops hits like in interviews, like the same one where he mentions wanting to wrestle Aldis, which by the way, just that shows the kind of mind he has for thinking about that stuff, like longevity or long-term thinking. But he even drops the hint there. I'm surprised MJF hasn't come for my title yet, because he still thinks he's got one over on me and blah, blah, blah. Like still letting that linger, that's still an issue they may have to deal with down the road. And Cody's going to go for the world title eventually someday, but they're not rushing to get you there. Like it's just interesting just how different the mindsets are between these two companies right now. And,
and if you want to even, especially looking at the NWA, right? I mean, you've got storylines like Camille, who episode 2 of Power, they were talking about let Camille speak. They wanted her to speak, the clickbait episode and stuff like that. And then it was like a year or more before she actually spoke. It was like right before the pandemic, and she finally spoke and had her first match. That's a good long-term story. We had been thinking about that for some time. Meanwhile on WWE, you've got within the span of like 2 months, Lana and Rusev get divorced, and then she suddenly marries Bobby Lashley, and now they're getting divorced. It's like, what? Like you can't even. I mean, it's not even the wrestling feuds and stories. It's these character development stories that they don't even give you time to like. I mean, if you miss 2 weeks of WWE, just throw in the towel, man, because you're done. You don't know what's going on.
Say what you want about WCW, but like the whole Sting, the NWO Sting angle, him challenging Hogan, they played that out for a year, and we were compelled every Monday night. We thought it was going to happen. I don't care. We were 37 weeks into it. We're like, it's happening tonight. This is the night. You know, it's like, gosh, man, 2 week attention spans.
Yeah, it's just I just don't. I don't know. I'm sort of sad like you, Will, because if you listen to our episodes, what was it? The Battle Royal episode we did where we were drawing questions from a hat. And when I had to draft for the NWA, Seth Rollins was top notch, one of my guys. And here's the traitor of Zicky Dice. Seth Rollins is a badass. He's a Ring of Honor veteran like Tyler Black. I mean, I love that guy. He's good. He's really, really good. It's like those kind of comments. And like you said, it's just weird because it's like some other comments that he's had released. It just seems like he's become the spokesperson for Vince McMahon almost, like the talent.
Well, and he always jumps in. I haven't seen him do it as much lately, but back in 2019, he was jumping in a lot on Twitter defending the WWE against a lot of trolls. And I get that if you want to be loyal.
Remember when we went back and forth with Will Ospreay?
Yeah. And it's like, I get that to an extent, but he was defending things like this, things that like universally are untrue among wrestling fans, I think, at least the wrestling fans that I know. And, if you're going to defend your company and the decisions and the booking and stuff like that, again, at least have some ratings to back it up or some kind of proof that people actually want to watch it. If you're going to come out and say, this is what people want.
Well, it's kind of going back to what Rob was even talking about. Just like, if you're talking about kids, I mean, a lot of kids are just going to be drawn in, like, Petra and stuff are going to be drawn in by flashy characters or, just whatever. So it's like, give us, NWA gives you question mark, there you go. Question mark's your man. But then that leaves for some of us other folks, the strictly business storyline and the build up and the evolution of that, like that kind of stuff works. So anyway, all right. So Seth Rollins, you're wrong.
You're in the chat, Seth. Feel free.
We know you're watching, Seth. You bastard. No, I do think Seth Rollins is a great wrestler, though.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, are we going to bring up the whole Eli Drake Carney Land episode or what? I got things to say about that.
You sounding like front row right now. You gonna ask us about Raven's comments too? You gonna get here?
Oh, Raven says something.
Oh man, there's a lot of places we could go, but I guess to fork off of this news bit, AEW doesn't have all good news. Kevin Riley departed Warner Media. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? And he was a big reason for their success with TNT. He was a TNT executive there. And I was looking into this a little bit. Like, he was actually the guy that showed Tony Khan, Kenny Omega, and like just what he was drawing, and he and the Bucks over in New Japan and that sort of thing, and kind of pushed him towards being interested in actually investing in wrestling in the first place. Like, he was a big factor in that. And I mean, not that he necessarily was like trying to get him to sign with TNT. That came up later, but like he was like showing him this, and then showing him how much money the WWE was getting bid on for their television contracts and that sort of thing. And it got Tony Khan interested in starting a wrestling promotion. Then you got the All In pay-per-view, which is essentially a proof of concept that Rhodes and the Bucks and everybody put on to show what could be done, and that kind of sealed the deal. But essentially, I think right when he was talking to Khan, like like his conversation with Khan about Omega and the Bucks, I think was the thing that sparked his interest. And then he went and looked, as I heard the story, and figured out that he could have, he had his big few that he wanted, and that contracts would all line up perfectly, that he could sign and get the deal done right away. And at that time, that was Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Chris Jericho, and CM Punk. Those were his like targets to nail down. Of course, the only one he didn't get was CM Punk. That later shifted into, like Cody Rhodes and Dean Ambrose coming in, or John Moxley, sorry. But anyway, just long story short, he was a big advocate for AEW with TNT, got them their TV deal they did. The TV deal right now that actually probably saved their bacon, honestly, because if they hadn't re-upped that contract right at the top of this year, they were trying to prove they could make money before they actually got paid for television up front. And now then they re-upped it like right at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, that like signed them for like 4 years, like sealed the deal that they were going to be making money. They were guaranteed TV. If it wasn't for that, I mean, well, they probably wouldn't be putting on shows right now. So he helped them out a lot, but he left the company. And so people have been asking Cody Rhodes this tweet from What Culture that Will sent me an article about it. A guy asked Cody Rhodes, should we fans be worried about the future of AEW with the changes of management in Time Warner / TNT? Cody did respond, no, we have been blessed to have had so many viewers, even opposed, thus the 3+ year extension. It's a great partnership. Everywhere I could find anything on it, not to ramble too much, but everywhere I could find anything on it, it's too early to say like how devastating this would be or not devastating, but AEW is in a good spot. Like we've been talking about, they've been very successful, more successful than expected probably. But Will, did you have thoughts on this?
Well, I think I think a lot of us are having flashbacks to the WCW days when Turner changed ownership and management, and to a group that wasn't interested in carrying wrestling. I don't think that's the case here. He was an advocate for getting AEW on TNT, but I think they've more than proved their value. AEW is featured. I mean, if you go on the TNT app, they are like front and center as a centerpiece of programming for TNT. So I don't think there's anything to worry about in that regard. Their ratings, as we just talked about, are going up. They're hitting that demographic. So I think as a network, I don't think anybody at TNT is second guessing Riley's decision, or advocating for them to be on there. I think they've proven their worth. But I think that's where kind of the worry comes from. If you were a fan of WCW in the late 90s and 2000, and that whole thing happened, and then suddenly WCW was gone, there might be a little PTSD there. I think that's kind of fueling people, but I don't think this is the same situation.
Nah, I 100% agree with Will. Couldn't have said it better. I wanted to draw attention to Front Row in the chat. He's railing on those Nielsen ratings, man. Take those jokers with a grain of salt, because was it Mike C said, I've never met a Nielsen member. And you know what? Neither have I. I'm not a member, and I've never met a member.
Well, if you see my response in the chat there, then
oh, that's your in-law?
No. I'm technically not supposed to say this, but since nobody watches, I'll say this. My in-laws are. They have the box and everything, and they're like, they get like a payment to track their TV viewing. I actually am a member of Screenwise, which is a Google company, and they pay us to monitor internet usage. So have to be careful about what porn I choose to watch and that stuff. But no, they do, like Google owns Screenwise, and they're a company that like they give you money weekly for like allowing their devices. My wife and I are actually having a discussion right now because they've just moved into TV, And they had asked me on a survey if I would be interested, or like, like if we didn't just do the internet, would you be interested in the TV stuff? And I was like, sure, whatever. Or like, if it's for extra money, I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. But
one of them, Gary. One of them, man.
But look, this is what they did. That's all they said. And then the other day, like right before we left for vacation, I got a box in the mail, and it's these 3 freaking huge tablet things, and they're fancy, and you're supposed to hook them to your internet.
Got lights and buttons.
No. Listen to me. You set them up, but they have a camera on them.
Ooh.
And you set them up in front of your TV so it can see if you're actually watching the television. And they monitor, like you have to check in on the tablet who's watching the TV right now. And
I feel like this is an episode of V, man. If I put on the Roddy Piper sunglasses, you're gonna be reptilian, dude.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I won't say an argument. That's what the discussion the wife and I are having. She's like, you are not putting that thing in front of the TV. Like, nobody is watching me watch TV. Like, that is not happening. And I'm like, man. She's like, why did you even get that? I'm like, I didn't even like order it or anything. They just sent it. Like, they just told us to plug it in. And
I got this weird bag of seeds in the mail, like from China or something. I don't know. I didn't order them. I planted them. Heck, why not?
You're supposed to snort them.
Yeah. I took them to school and gave them out to the whole faculty.
You put them on muffins. They're COVID seeds.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's wild, man. I responded to Front Row in the chat with this, but I'll say it on here too. The Nielsen ratings are wildly inaccurate because it's not everybody. But the reality is it fuels business, the business side of things, because advertisers, that's the only metric they have to go on. And so when they're choosing who to throw their money at, they're looking at those ratings. So yes, they don't matter to the large, if we're talking about, 100% accuracy, they're not super accurate, but it is an indicator of where advertisers are going to spend their money and what programming and what companies are going to benefit. And so when you look at those ratings, that's kind of, that's the setting the sales for that. So if you see AEW performing well in that demographic, you're going to see an influx probably of ad dollars going to AEW that's going to do nothing but help their company because of that. So, that's kind of the caveat there.
There are people still that will argue all day that the science of that is correct. I don't know what the I don't even know how you'd measure exactly how accurate something is, but that when you take a demographic and you take a sample size scientifically, and it's like 1 in 10 do this, then that should translate to tens of thousands, basically still get the same ratio of people that would watch this thing or do this thing or vote for this person or whatever. It's the same reason polls still exist, essentially. So it's an interesting concept. I don't know. Now a lot of people have always been concerned with DVR, but supposedly now they include that too.
Yes, it's simple timetables, man. Just got to make sure you carry the 2. That's all it is.
So anyway, Stinson, he's more like a history major or something. I don't really remember. He got his PhD in the Confederacy, so you don't really want to listen.
Oh man, you're gonna get me canceled, man. You ain't supposed to say that, man.
Just not the person you want to see with that LWO shirt on. That's all I'm saying.
If Rob hadn't been canceled yet, he's not getting canceled.
That's messed up.
Oh man, I love that Wrestling in the MMA in the chat said.
Hey, let's get it out there. I did not get my doctorate in the Confederacy per se. All right, carry on.
You should have probably left it at that. It would just sound like a joke, but now you're just like, kinda. Anyway. Oh my god, I had such a terrible joke I was gonna make. We'll save that for the after show about Rob.
Why is that so funny, man?
I don't know. It was just going to be about the type of gowns you guys wore at your graduation. Anyway, what is Rob doing right now? What the hell's going on?
Talking to somebody else. He's busy. We're like a.
I just got mooned. I just got straight up mooned.
Pixar didn't happen, Rob.
He pulled a Jennifer Horn on me, man. I was like, what the?
Anyway. Yeah, it's a trap. Wrestling with the MMA said that in the chat, but that Will wouldn't get that reference. So
I get it. It's a Star Trek thing.
Yeah, there you go. All right, how long are we in this right now? Should we wrap it and just go to the live after show, or are we still hanging with the podcast people too?
Well, what do we
got? Some other news.
I was looking at the list. I mean, that's everything of note. Yeah, we could probably just open it up and talk about whatever everybody else wants to talk about.
All right. Well, if you're listening to this, we're going to go ahead and wrap this part of the show up. Thank you guys for listening on the podcast portion. You guys keep us afloat. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing that and continue to listen. And we'll try to up our game here. Will had a vacation, then I had a vacation. Rob's Rob. And he's going to have a vacation to Texas soon, and it's going to be good. But we're 100% just we're revitalized, ready to make this thing something special for you guys. And we appreciate all of the hashtag NWA fam. Even if you can't be here with us live, we love you guys. Thank you so much. And just make sure you, if you haven't already, hit subscribe on the YouTube page. Just because you want to support us, you go to the NWA Pod there and get your NWA fam merch. You can also, if you just want to buy some beer, just make a little donation of a couple of bucks and just help us just pay for the cost of keeping this thing up and running. And also, if you're feeling really froggy, you can give us a 5-star review on that iTunes, and that really gets us moved up in the rankings. We are really high up in India right now. Like, we are we're in the top 50 of podcasts, period, in India. So thank you to our Indian audience, by the way. But also, yeah, just thank you guys all in general. We love you guys. Will, why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, at Hey It's Will on Twitter, Instagram, at Real Hey It's Will on TikTok. And yeah, right here on This Is the NWA.
Rob.
I am. Why do you say it like that, man?
I don't know.
You're like, hey, Will, and then Rob.
Rob, people are going to think I don't like Rob, but I posted a picture the other day of Rob and I on a boat together. Yeah. So that's cool. Or what my wife said would have been.
Someone thinks we don't like each other?
I don't know. I'm just saying, as much as we pick on each other.
Nah. I'm at R Stinson 4. Of course, you can catch me here every Sunday night, Tuesday night, Friday nights, or Friday afternoons. At some point, we drop Piper's Notes. We had a great episode with Nikita Koloff this last week. From time to time, I'll drop some personal stuff, what I call table talk, which is about youngest daughter. And we've got some more stuff coming up. We've got an exclusive Nick Aldis match coming up in 2 weeks that we're going to air on our podcast that I can't wait to show with one of the greats in the independent wrestling scene in the Southeast, King Shane Williams.
Oh, my God, Rob, but emphasize that. I forgot all about that, and that's important. We're going to have an exclusive Nick Aldis NWA Championship match right here on the YouTube channel. That should be a live premiere. That should be a big deal.
We'll do that. We'll do that. That'll be not next Thursday, but the following Thursday after that. We have gotten permission from the promoters of the AML, which is one of the great promotions in the North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia area, to air the main event of WrestleCade 2019, which was Nick Aldis defending the 10 pounds of gold against King Shane Williams, who is a friend of mine. We've worked together. We've got a long history. And the very next day, King Shane Williams was making his Piper's Notes appearance. So we got some good content coming out. We've also got a great episode coming out next Friday with a guy named Alex Taylor, who is also a big name in this territory. He's one of those Tennessee boys. Close friend of Crimson, trained by Seth Rollins. Speaking of Seth Rollins, we talked about him tonight. and he is our guest, and he's going to be on there talking about the independent wrestling scene in the Southeast. Of course, on Piper's Nuts, we don't talk a whole lot about wrestling per se, but we get to see these guys in a light that we don't normally get to see. We get to find out about their favorite bands, their favorite cereal brands, or whatever. It's just me and Piper talking to these guys. So look out for that. I'm excited about that.
As always, I am at This Is Gary Horn, and the show is at the NWA Pod on all of the social medias everywhere. You can find us, youtube.com/the NWA Pod and the NWApod.com. You guys make sure you hit us up. Let us know what you want to talk about or what you want to hear us talk about on the show. Oh, wow. And I am looking at right now, if you go to Twitter, Zicky Dice just posted the 10 pounds of pink. So this is interesting. We'll show it to our live audience, which is something the podcast listeners will miss out on. But if you ever want to join us, Sunday nights, Tuesday nights, usually starting at 8, and we go pretty late, so we can hang out. But even if you can't make it, we do appreciate you listening. But that's it for this week on the podcast portion. We're going to the live after show. So thanks everybody for listening, and enjoy your gravy cake.